Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on TIPES, Transport Infrastructure Product Evaluation Scheme. We're very excited to have Eric Denneman joining us from our Brisbane office from ARB Group. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Good morning, Kathy. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. There's a lovely picture of Eric. He's our team leader, pavements and surfacings from ARB Group, and Eric's details are on the screen there. And today I will be your moderator and I look after the knowledge transfer program at ARB Group. Just a few housekeeping items for those of you who may be new to the webinar experience. The webinar will run for no longer than an hour overall. There'll be plenty of opportunities for questions and you will receive a recording as well as a copy of the presentations via email in the next day or two. Please don't hesitate to ask questions along the way, and you can do this using the questions box which will be on your control panel. You can make comments or ask questions, and please don't hesitate to do so. I will manage those with Eric, and if we ask you to raise your hand, you can do so using the little raise your hand icon. Now I think we've just got a few more people joining us as we're going along, so we might get started with a question for those of you who are with us already. We would like to know from you who your employer is. Who do you work for? So that should be up on your screen now. So if you can just select who it is that you work for, and thank you, we've got 60% in. So Eric, I think you'll be interested to know about who your audience is today.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Sorry, I was struggling with the mute button there a bit.
Okay.
So what have you got?
Nearly got everyone in, so we might just close that off now and share that. So what we do have is majority is local government today. 47% of our audience is local government, 29% from a state or territory road agency, 12% contractors, and 6% supplier and 6% other.
Great, thanks.
Now I'll just hand over to you, Eric, and you can take over from here.
Okay, thank you, Kathy, and thanks for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. So, as Kathy says, my name is Eric. I lead a great team of pavement engineers at ARB in Brisbane. Personally, I specialize in the mechanistic design and specification of asphalt and concrete surfacing materials. I've been with ARB for 2 years, and one of my roles has been leading the development and implementation of TIPES, so the Transport Infrastructure Product Evaluation Scheme, which is basically a method of independent technical assessment of innovative road construction products. Before I joined ARB, I worked 10 years in South Africa at CSIR, and there I did the assessment of a multitude of road construction products. And before that, I went to school in the Netherlands, which is where my funny accent comes from. Okay, so with that, I will start the presentation. I've prepared a relatively short presentation for you, which is outlined as shown in the screen. So I'll start with the aims of TIPES, what we're hoping to accomplish with through the use of TIPES, then the background of TIPES, how TIPES came to be, the scope of TIPES in terms of what products it covers, and finally I'll take you through a couple of slides through the TIPES process. The full process can be found in the guide for applicants, which is on our website. You see a screenshot of it on the right of your screen there on the slide. Okay, so if my computer allows me, I will now go to the next slide. Yes. So the aims of TIPES. TIPES is intended for the assessment of non-standard products that fall outside of the scope of established standards and specifications. In other words, it's for innovative products that are not covered by the current specifications that are already in place at road agencies. And the idea behind that is to allow innovative products to gain market acceptance, and instead of having a technical assessment scheme at every road agency, the idea is to have a single national road agency, which will make it, or a single national assessment scheme, which will make it a lot easier for products to get through that process. Another aim is, by doing this, to reduce the barriers to innovation in the sector. Innovation is known to be slow and incremental in scale-intensive sectors like road construction and civil engineering in general. And finally, we aim to assist road agencies with the independent and expert evaluation of products to inform major investment decisions. So instead of having road agencies having to do the evaluation of every product themselves, there would be a national scheme to look after that. The background to TIPES, it's not entirely new. So the Transport Infrastructure Product Evaluation Scheme, it was originally developed by the Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads, and mainly by a gentleman who's effectively known by most simply as Rama. We then took that over at ARB about a year or two ago, and we further developed it, also based on the input of other road agencies. Most state road agencies had their own evaluation scheme in place, so we looked at developing a process that would take into account the demands of all the different parties involved. So we now have a national scheme which is endorsed by all Australian state and territory road agencies, and that is really in line with international practice where similar schemes exist. Like I said, I worked in South Africa on a scheme like that, but in Britain they've got the British Board of Agrema, or HAPAS. So they are typically administered by national accreditation bodies who are often known as Agrema, which means approval in French. For those of you in Queensland, you may have seen this fact sheet that has some additional information on TIPES. It was sent out through the Road and Transport Alliance. This fact sheet with the background to TIPES can also be downloaded from our website. I'll show you the web address a bit later in this presentation. Then the scope of TIPES. The TIPES process currently covers non-standard road construction products only. So that would include, for instance, non-traditional stabilizers, dust suppressants, ultra-thin surfacings, pothole fillers. What else could we think of? Road paint. Think of products like that. We are under a bit of pressure to extend this to other fields such as traffic engineering, so we are busy writing a dedicated guideline for that. But at the moment, as it stands, TIPES is only working for non-standard road construction products. So the focus in this presentation will be on those products. The TIPES process can be broken down into 4 steps. So first we've got the application, where the proponent submits his application document and supporting data. Then a panel of experts comes together and develops a laboratory assessment protocol. And then if the product shows potential, we move on to a field performance trial. And at the end of the field performance trial, we would or the experts would write a report on the performance of the products, which could then be included in a public register, and we register that technical opinion. Currently, there's a single application process for all road construction products, but we have started work on more specific product category-specific guidelines. We've started work on developing a assessment protocol for non-traditional stabilizers and dust suppressants. because that is by far the busiest part of the types process at the moment. Most applications are in that area. Which doesn't mean that it's not suitable for other products. It's just that in Australia currently that's where the most interest is. Okay, then the types process. It starts with the application, in which the proponent submits supporting information, including the intended use of the product. So what is the product to be used for? Also, what are the limitations of the product? And importantly, the applicant has to specify the claimed performance of the product. So any claim in terms of performance of the product will be tested in the laboratory phase and the field testing phase. So that's something applicants should be taken into account. If you claim that the product has a certain performance, that will be tested and reported on. Then quality assurance documentation. We assume that, or we require to have a ISO 9001 or equivalent type of quality control process in place that covers both manufacture and placement of the product. That's just to make sure that the product gets offered consistently every single time. Then past performance. Obviously, it's beneficial to the application process if proponents can show that a product has been placed in the past and performed well, and where there's laboratory data available from earlier studies. That is also of value to the assessment process. And finally, of course, a material safety data sheet should be included in the application. So that is submitted to us, that application. We then assess that, and then typically we get back to the proponent and ask for additional information, or if the application fulfills the requirements, we move on to the initial assessment stage, where we will have the laboratory assessment. Now, in the initial assessment stage, that is really where we're starting to separate the snake oils from the products with some serious potential. And that initial assessment stage would start with the appointment of a panel of experts. This would always include road agency representatives, and it would include a number of experts from ARB. So besides myself, it would include some real experts as well, which we select from throughout our organization. Those experts then decide on a laboratory test program for the product. That lab test program gets sent to the applicant, and they give their input to it as well. We perform those laboratory tests, and the panel then evaluates the outcomes of the laboratory test program and decide whether the product has shows enough potential for a full field trial. Also, some of these products have, of course, been in the market for a while, and if there's an extensive track record where the product has been placed on many roads and shows good performance on those roads, it is possible to consider interim registration of the product at that stage while the trial is still ongoing. So the final, or the next step would be the field performance trial. The panel of experts would set the requirements for that trial. It should be under appropriate traffic conditions and road geometry, depending on the claims that are made for the product. The proponent then negotiates the construction of the trial with the road agency, and the performance of the trial will be monitored over a period of time. As it says here, typically 2 years, but it will really depend on the type of product we're looking at. It may also go on for longer if a product fits the road agency's long-term pavement performance program, for instance. Then the final step is the registration of the actual technical opinion. Once the assessment process is complete, the panel of experts writes a report, and in that report they will state what tests were undertaken, how the product was evaluated, and for what type of conditions the product is deemed fit for purpose. If the outcome is favorable, the technical opinion is included in the public register. Of course, it's free to the proponent to also include the technical opinion if the outcome is not favorable, but we assume that in those cases they will not want that published. So the idea is to have a website with the certificates for the different products, and the proponent is provided with a certificate of registration. And all of those certificates will be on the ARB website as well.
So, Eric, if I'm understanding rightly here, the once a particular product goes through this assessment, the information will be available to other organisations and people on that particular product?
It will be open to the public, Kathy. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great. Is it okay if, before we do continue on here, if you take a couple of questions that we have from our audience?
Sure, sure.
Fantastic. Okay, so if anyone else has any questions, now's a great time to send them through. We will send, just as a reminder, we will send a copy of the presentation as well as the recording afterwards, and so Eric's details will be included on that as well, because we've had a few requests for that, Eric.
There's a slide in the presentation as well.
Yes.
Kathy, I think we still get that with the web address and my contact details on.
Yep, fantastic. Okay. Now, some questions that we've got coming through. Simon is asking, have any types approved materials been accepted by New South Wales RMS?
Well, Simon, the TIPES process has been endorsed by RMS. No products have gone through the full TIPES process as a whole at this stage. So there haven't been any products approved yet. But so I guess there's two answers to your question. The first is yes, RMS endorses the process, or has sent us a letter that they do endorse the process. So they would, the types assessments are not state specific, so we would have national types assessments, and they would also be valid for RMS. But the other part of your question is no products have yet been fully assessed. It takes some time, but there are a number of products in the pipeline.
Okay, so Eric, just as a follow-on to that, from what you talked about earlier, the field trials being approximately 2 years, can we expect a product to take 2 to 3 years to go through this whole process?
Yes, Kathy, that's correct. Unfortunately, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So yes, especially for newer projects or newer products, if there's no field data available, we will have to test it in the field before we can say it's truly fit for purpose. That's just part of the process.
Yep. Okay. Great. A few more questions. Shannon is asking about, are there any pre-qualification requirements of the laboratory performing the testing? So I think you said there was an ISO situation.
Well, that is sorry. The quality. What I said about the ISO, Kathy, is we want something that is ISO 9001 certified or similar. So people do not need ISO 9001 certification to get through. But what we're looking at out of this is a quality management process that is similar to ISO 9001 specification, just to set the bar for what we're expecting.
Yeah.
Then in terms of Shannon's question, yes, we would look for NATA accreditation for tests, but also some of the tests may be more specialized, and the panel may actually even indicate which laboratories would be suitable by name to run a certain test.
Okay, great. Now we have another question from Usman, who's asking what information becomes public? Is it the recommendations only or the test results, etc. as well?
It maybe not the full test results, but definitely say for instance, if we ask for a minimum texture depth of a road surfacing product of 1 millimeter, we would include that this product scored 1.6 millimeters in our test, or something like that. It would definitely have those indicators in there. Maybe not the full set of test results, but the report would indicate on the critical parameters how the product performed.
Okay, great. Now, I think you have answered, there's a few questions in regards to the current list of approved and rejected products, and I think we understand that there are products currently in the process, but none have reached quite the end of it as yet. Now,
there will not be a list of rejected products.
Aha. Okay. Thank you.
Because the process is confidential until such time that the process is completed, and then the applicant has the choice of whether he wants the results published or not. So obviously, if there's a negative answer, you would typically not. Those results would never become public.
Okay. We've got an interesting question from Simon again. If innovative materials are tested by the conventional tests, which may not be applicable to the material, do we agree that field performance is the ultimate test of performance?
Well, Simon, there's two parts of to that question. So firstly, we would look for laboratory tests that would give us the best indication, a performance-based indication of how the product is going to perform, and that may not be the standard tests that are in the current road agency specifications. But yes, to answer your next question, it's very difficult to talk about across all product categories, but in general, yes, if what we are really looking for is how the product performs under the traffic situation, that is, well, that would be reflective of the claimed field performance of the product.
Okay, now we have a number of questions in relation to the products, I guess, and there's a range of different products that people are asking about whether they will be part of this program. Hugh is asking about crash barriers and frangibility of poles and structures. Are these sorts of tests undertaken, or any plans for these to be included?
Currently there is an ASTROADS assessment panel for crash barriers, or at least a road agency panel for the assessment of crash barriers. So I'm not sure that specific category will ever make it into TIPES. It will all depend on what types of decisions are made, I guess. It's not something we are actively pursuing at the moment. At the moment we're looking, there's a lot of demand for traffic engineering products, like these stop-and-go signs at roadwork sites, that type of thing. But yes, we'll basically cater to the demand. We don't have an intention of replacing assessment procedures that are already in place unless we're asked to do so. So I hope that answers your question. In terms of if you have a question for a specific product, I would propose that you just submit or send me an email, and we'll take it up internally to see what the correct assessment procedure would be, and if it could be covered by TIPES.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Eric. Another question in regards to products. Martin's asking, can products be software or other non-physical hardware products?
Again, that would be my immediate answer would be probably not.
Yep.
But again, if you send the example to me, I could give you a more detailed answer, because it's difficult to say. Also, it's not all up to me, so we would have to send it up the grapevine here internally and see how it should be handled.
Fantastic. Okay, so that sounds like it also, you've gone towards answering a little bit of the next question from Douglas. How do we direct applicants to initiate the types process? Okay,
Douglas, so there's that fact sheet on the website, and we'll get to the website later. But the website's got the guideline for applicants as well, so you could even give them a copy of the guideline. But the easiest would be to just give them the web address. It takes you through the full process of how to apply for types.
Okay, we might take a break from the questions there for a moment, Eric, and we'll ask the audience a question that's been up on their screen now for a little while. So, in your work environment, what type of product would most benefit from a types assessment? And we've got a few examples listed there. So if you can take a moment to have a think about that and jot your answer into the questions box, that would be great. And I believe we might get a few votes for traffic engineering products, as you have indicated as well, Eric. Yeah.
Well, that's great, because we are in the process of developing a guideline for traffic engineering products. Now, I know very little about those, but that's good feedback, because we are developing something for them as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. Well, road surfacing products seem to be also quite popular, as well as non-traditional stabilisers, road base for flexible pavements, and again traffic engineering products. So thank you to those of you who've responded to that. Eric, now would you like to carry on or take a few more questions?
Okay. I'm not sure how much there still is, Kathy. Yeah, I think we could just go on to the next poll question. I think there's still 1 or 2 slides between this and the next question.
Yep.
So, okay. Yeah. We're here. Okay. So I actually think we got this question earlier. So, how can you make types work for you? But if you're at a road agency, you could request a type certificate of registration as a condition for purchase. It would be important, though, to check that the intended purpose that you've got for that product is in line with what it was tested for in the certificate. Again, the types process will work such that the proponent will make certain claims around the product, and those are the claims that the testing will only be catered to answer, to check whether those claims can be upheld. So you need to make sure that what's been tested is actually in line with how you want to use the product. Okay, then if you are a proponent of a product, you could apply for assessment of a product by submitting your application form and supporting documentation. And how to do that is set out in the guide for applicants, which is on the ARB website under that link that you see there. All right, so are you ready for the next poll question, Kathy?
Yeah, sure. So the I guess again asking our audience, what do you see from what you've heard from Eric today? What the main benefit you'd expect to get from types is, and is it independent information on product performance, easier market introduction for product? Or types will provide me with an assessment process to refer proponents to in order to have their products tested before we consider it for use.
Yeah, another way of reading that last one is it will give me with a place to send proponents of snake oils to for them to stop bugging me. That's also a way
Yeah.
of reading that last question.
Yes, yes, and I think our audience is reading it the same way as well. Very much, yeah. Option 3 seems to be the popular one there. We might take one or two more questions at this point, if that's okay with you, Eric.
Yeah.
Got an interesting question here. Do you think that a performance-based road base could be assessed by types? A road base that does not meet road authority specifications but can be shown to perform?
The answer to that is yes, I think we can, as long as well, they are international examples of how to assess that product. It's very hard to answer a general question like that, but that is exactly what this process is intended for. So basically what would happen is submit the application, we would look at it, try to identify ways of assessing it, and involve the experts that we've got available nationally in road agencies, at universities, or within ARB, to come up with a way to assess that. So I would think it is the best chance you've got to get your product assessed.
Okay.
Provided that the panel agrees that it's got potential, that is.
For sure. And we'll take one more question at this point from Douglas. When assessing the track records and previous testing of a product, how will these be validated?
Yes, Douglas. So, well, there's different ways of doing it. Obviously, if a product has got a lot of test results from the past, that will become easier. Well, we will look at what type of laboratory did the testing. Was it independent? We will look at, was it testing done by a road agency, for instance, and obviously we will give more weight to assessment done by road agencies than when it's done in the applicant's own backyard. But those are all things we will consider anything. So any testing that data that can be provided, but we will keep an open mind. We will also check with laboratories whether the testing actually took place, because it's actually scary how often. Well, anyway, we make sure that the data that we validate that the data actually was well, gives a good indication of what the product was, and that it was that it was obtained in a proper way.
Sounds good, Eric. Thank you. I'll give you a break from the questions now if you want to continue on with your presentation.
I'm not sure that we have much more. Okay, so in summary, the TIPES process is now a national assessment scheme, and the intention is to reduce uncertainty for proponents, because they don't have to jump through a different hoop at every road agency they talk to. But at the same time, it also reduces uncertainty for road agencies, because they actually have a place to refer proponents to make sure that the product gets assessed independently. And we hope that all of this will, in the end, result in the use of more innovative products in road construction. So that's the end of my presentation. So there's more information on types, and everything I said today is probably in that fact sheet as well. So that gives you a quick overview of the types process. But all that information is on the website that we created for types. And for any specific questions, you can contact me at the contact details that are shown on the left there. Kathy?
Thank you, Eric. Fantastic. Sounds very interesting. And if you're happy to take a couple more questions, because we do have some more questions,
No, we can go on as long as you like.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll probably go on for about another 10 minutes or until we run out of questions from people.
Or
So,
until we run out of participants.
yeah, whatever happens.
Okay.
Okay, question has come through from Tim.
Yep.
And Tim's asking, let's assume a product, say a dust suppressant, has some positive effect. Will there be any analysis of how cost effective it is?
Tim, the answer to that is no. That is up to the road agency. That's impossible for us to assess.
Good.
So I guess that's a short answer, but
Yeah,
that's,
no, that's fair
that's
enough.
the only answer.
Another question is, where are we? How does TIPES evaluation certificate assist state road authorities with the acceptance or rejection of the evaluated product? Asks Bunish.
Well, that depends on how it is included in the procurement process. Look, this is fairly new to Australia. Where I used to work, road agencies would actually specify in tenders that the successful product will have this and this certification to be considered. So that's one way of doing it. And in terms of the actual performance properties that you're looking at, again, the certificate will state what the product was tested for. It will also state any known limitations. So it will just give the road agency a lot more independent information on how the product performs. I hope that answers your question.
For sure, Eric. Look, I think we might be wrapping up some questions. We do have this one might be a little bit tricky to answer, but the cost of registration.
That is a tricky question because there's a lot of things involved in this registration process. The guide does include an indication of what the process will cost. But it will all depend on how much testing. Obviously, the guide doesn't give you any prices for testing because that's for the applicant themselves to negotiate with testing facilities. But in terms of the initial application, and I'm not even entirely sure, you can look this up in the guide, but it's in the order of $3,000. And then the actual assessment of the product is another, well, I'll speak on the correction, but it's between $10,000 and $15,000. And then there's still the field performance trial as well, but it will all depend on how long that trial goes on for, so that's hard to say. And obviously the construction of the field trial would, well, the applicant would have to negotiate with a road agency to see how that would be funded.
Okay. It sounds like quite a bit goes into it. A couple more questions here. Stephen's asking about any products being tested, road surfacing products that utilise used or recycled tyres. He believes something of that type of product is currently being tested in New South Wales.
Not at the moment, and it would all depend on what type of. We can definitely look at it, but there are actually in Australia at present a number of projects that look into the use of strap tires in asphalt and seals. So if you're talking about that type of application, it would probably be covered in a road agency specification. But it could be included in the TIPES process as well. It wouldn't be a problem if that's what you mean to cover that. It's not currently part of any TIPES assessment.
Yep. And is there any consideration given to variations in climate, for example, tropical region soil types in the approval process?
that would depend on whether the expert panel thinks that that is appropriate. So currently, none of the products are, but it would all depend on what the panel of experts thinks that should be included. It also depends on what the proponent actually claims the performance of the product to be. So that would be on a depends on a case, would be decided on a case-by-case basis. We are, like I said earlier in the presentation, we are going to be developing product category-specific guidelines for the assessment, and those would probably have more information on for products that are sensitive to climate, how we would assess that.
Okay, great. I think we might take 2 more questions at this point. Are the field trials being constructed by ARB or the applicant? I think you may have answered that earlier. That would be the applicant would be involved in the construction of the field trials?
And a road agency, yes.
Yeah.
So we are, we are not going to, we won't be organizing that. That would be between the applicant and the road agency.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the end of the laboratory test process, we would the panel of experts would write a letter that states that this product shows this potential based on laboratory tests, and could be considered for a road trial, something like that. And that's something that the proponent could use to negotiate with road agencies. Also, typically, road agencies would be part of the assessment process from the start anyway, so there may be ways there to negotiate the trials.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Eric. You've done great with these questions. And we'll take one last one, which is from, okay, we'll take 2 more. Anthony's put forward a question and suggestion. Could consideration be given to adding a user feedback facility that summarised additional testing that the users of the new product may require if they use the product in the future?
Sorry, Kathy, you will have to repeat that.
Oh, sorry, Eric, it was a bit of a long one. So Anthony's asking about a user feedback facility that summarised additional testing that the users of the new product may require if they use the product in the future.
Not sure that I entirely understand.
Okay, all right, Anthony, we might ask you to further clarify that if you can, and in the meantime we'll take a question from Bruce about the applicant's intellectual property. Is the applicant's intellectual property secure?
The applicants, there are some or intellectual property clauses in the guideline. So yes, anything that is submitted to ARB is confidential in terms of confidential to the evaluation panel, and will only be used in the assessment of the product. So from that respect, the intellectual property is secure. Obviously, in any assessment, the product evaluation panel is going to learn a lot about the product. That's part of the process, I guess. But yeah, we don't need to know all the constituents of for instance, if you have a ultra-thin surfacing, like someone was talking about earlier, we don't need to know what exactly goes in there. We're just interested in the performance. So we're not going to ask you what all the materials that you've used to put it together.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And look, I think obviously Eric's details are on the screen, and a copy of the presentation and the recording will come out to you shortly. So if there's any further questions, plenty of information on our website, and obviously you can get in touch with Eric. Eric, thank you so much for your time in running through the webinar today, and thank you to our participants for your interest and for your questions, and I think we'll just about wrap it up now. Thanks again, Eric.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, Kathy, and also thanks for all the attendance for your interest, and hope to hear from you soon.
Great. Bye, everyone.